I seriously need your help here, X. I honestly have no idea what I stumbled into, or even what I should do. It's gonna sound crazy, and that's because it is crazy. I feel like I am going insane and almost like I was set up or something. That's the only thing I can think of to explain how everything happened, but I don't know why. Let me start from the beginning so that you can all understand. I work at Disney World and have done so for a number of years, more than 10 years of dedicated service. I work as a security guard, but mostly on the night shift and not during the busy days. Being a guard during the day at Disney World is a lot more stressful. There are a lot more strict rules to follow so that you don't ruin the magic for the little ones or even the adults too. Whereas at night, I mostly just do a few patrols, watch some cameras, and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so, a couple of days ago, I was working pretty late. I think I clocked in around 10 p.m., and I'd done a few rounds and was watching the cameras. These cameras, man, there are a lot of them. They span the whole park. They cover every angle of every building that you can think of. But not just that. They also cover underneath the park. Those passages that you've heard of that staff use to get around the park unnoticed by the general public. Even those have hundreds of cameras. I've never personally witnessed anything bad going on down there, but we have had some break-ins over the years. It's crazy what people will do just to see down there, and for very little gain. One guy I remember actually used security clearance he had from a family member. He broke into the utilidors underground, and I think he made off with thousands of dollars in costumes and props. He got away initially, but he wasn't exactly subtle about everything, and he got caught and eventually went to jail, the absolute idiot. So, yeah, that's why even monitoring under there is so important. So I'm just sitting down with my feet up and watching the cameras. The place is pretty devoid of staff on a nighttime and is down to just a skeleton crew basically. You will have a few guards patrolling around the park, maybe a few maintenance guys fixing some things up for the morning, like rides and stuff. Other than that though, it's just a total ghost town. At some point though, I snapped to attention because I got an alert. I got some alert on the system that movement was detected moving through one of the utilidors. I switched to the cameras to try and check, and I saw someone on them. They were running. No, they were full on sprinting through those concrete tunnels and showed no signs of stopping at all. The cameras are pretty low FPS and poor quality because of just how expensive it would be to store all of the data, and so making things out was quite difficult. But it was still clear that this guy was not a staff member. He looked to be wearing these plain clothes that looked gray or something, but a little darker maybe. I could see where he was heading to though. He was trying to make it out through one end and probably surface somewhere in the middle of the park. I picked up my radio and I started running to try and intercept the guy. I figured I could catch him before he got too far away. I thought that someone had broken in, or maybe even waited in the park overnight somehow, or something like that. I'm not sure. It's weird though, because without a keycard, there is just no possible way for him to have gotten down there. Not as far as I was aware, anyway. I was out of breath when I finally caught up to this guy. I hadn't realized just how much weight I had put on, and how out of shape I'd gotten doing this job for so long. I shouted at him so that he would stop, but he did not even so much as look back towards me. Once I got close enough to him, I had to jump to close the last bit of distance and tackle him to the ground. It was the only way. Otherwise, he was just going to keep on running. He was never going to stop. The first thing that I realized when I tackled this man was that he was soaking wet. Literally as if he had jumped into a pool with all of his clothes still on. He was wearing this plain white t-shirt and pants that looked grey on the cameras, I guess because they were wet. I tackled the guy by the legs, and we both hit the concrete floor, and immediately he is squirming and just talking and talking. I can barely make out what he is saying though, because he is in such a panic, and I was worried that there was something seriously wrong with this guy. I was holding him down, and I started reaching for my radio to bring some other people over to help me. But when I pulled out my radio, he just went crazy. He smacked the radio out of my hand and started begging and pleading with me. Something about getting him out of here. He would not calm down or answer any of my questions about how he broke in. So I had to grab him and pin him face down and use my handcuffs on him. By this point, he was wailing. I had never heard a grown man sob as intensely as this. He sounded as if he was about to die. This man, there were a few things I noticed about him during the scramble and while I handcuffed him. For a start, he was really thin, nearly down to skin and bones, it looked like. He looked incredibly unhealthy and had this kind of pale, sickly color to his skin. One of his eyes, his left one, I think, it looked to be really swollen and infected. Like, to the point he could not really open it up fully or see out of it. It looked like there was some kind of pus leaking out of it or something. I'm not really sure. That was not the only thing that I noticed. His arms were bare, and so I could see that the veins along one of them, they looked massive, unusually so. They were close to the skin and protruding, and this made me think that maybe he was some kind of a junkie. Maybe he'd broken in one time and was hiding out in the park. It seemed pretty unlikely, but crazy things like that have happened before. I figured maybe he was using the place to get warm, but then maybe he was cold turkey and had a mental break or something else. I asked him once again what was going on. I asked him who he was, where he came from, how he got in here, etc. I have no idea where my radio went after he hit it. I looked around for a while, but I could not see it, and I was just way too focused on this guy and making sure that nothing wrong happened. There were plenty of spares in the security room not too far away, so I wasn't like super worried. I knew that I could get a spare in like no time. He was still in a frenzy and mumbling, but he finally started to get some full sentences coming out of his mouth. He begged me to not call security. He said he would be happy to leave, that I could even call the police as long as they came to take him out of there. Bit of a strange thing for a trespasser to say. Maybe he really was out of his mind and needed medical treatment. I asked him if he wanted a doctor, and he said no. He said to call the police and escort him out of the park. Well, now I was worried because that's a little too easy. I was worried maybe something weird was going on. Maybe there were more people that he was covering for. I asked him if there were more homeless people who had broken in down there. And his eyes kind of searched around for a bit, then lit up, and he told me yes. He practically shouted yes at me. I asked him where, and he told me that he would show me personally as long as I called the police and took him away to jail. Sure, I guess. This had to be the craziest junkie I'd ever encountered in my entire life. I pushed him forward, and he walked in front of me, still handcuffed. The route he took me down was strange, to say the least. Now, I had patrolled down here and used it for access to the park quite a lot. I figured I knew almost every square inch of the park, aside from the few areas that I did not have access to. And he led me directly to one of these areas. See, there are doors that require swipe cards. Some require a different level of access that only managers and execs and owners have. I knew we were heading to one of them, and I told him as much. I was like, this is pointless. I know you are lying to me. But he insisted and told me it was just open. And sure enough, this little door that was tucked away down these long tunnels, the swipe was green. Once the door has been opened, it should immediately revert to red. I guess perhaps there had been a short circuit or a malfunction. I made a mental note to flag to my boss later on. Now, any sane person would have just left it there, called the police, taken this guy away, and let other people do their jobs. But I was curious, and maybe I might get a promotion or a raise for getting to the bottom of such a serious breach of security. I know, it was hilariously naive, especially for someone with so much tenure who knows how things work around here. I guess I was just feeling jaded and at the end of my tether. I think part of me just wanted something crazy to happen so I could just escape my daily slog. I opened up the door, and there was not much. There was another door, locked with the red sign, a staircase that went both up and down, and what looked to be a manhole cover. Now that was seriously strange, especially down here. And the man pointed to this. He told me it was where he came from. Sure enough, the cover had been flung and was just randomly in the middle of the room, and there was only a gaping hole there now. This was so reckless of me, but I told the man to go down first and that I would follow. This immediately sent him into a panic, and he told me no. He practically begged me to let him wait upstairs. I told him that this was the deal, and his eyes started tearing up. But he made his way down. It was one of those shitty ladders built actually into the wall, into the concrete. I had to help him get down, and he still fell down the last few steps, down onto the ground. I heard a splash when he did, and I followed him down. The floor was soaked. There was something flowing through the room around ankle high, some kind of liquid. It smelled like chlorine or maybe bleach, I'm not entirely sure. The second that I got down there, the man started covering his eyes with his hands. He just huddled himself into a corner and was just sobbing, and I asked him what the hell was wrong with him. It was pretty dark down there, so I flipped on my flashlight, and I noticed why he was so scared. There were rows and rows down here. Rows and rows of some kind of tanks. They were all full of some kind of liquid, and I saw people just floating inside of them, bobbing up and down. I saw a man inside one of them. He had this mask over his face. You know, like those masks they use to give patients oxygen in the hospital? It was exactly like that. He had all of these tubes attached to him, all over his body. One looked to be connected to his wrist, like an IV drip or something. But there were others, lots of other ones, going to all other parts of his body. These tubes, it looked like there was some kind of liquid flowing through them. I couldn't be sure because the color was not too dissimilar to the liquid in the tanks, but that's what it looked like to me, at least. And it wasn't just one man. There were multiple men in different tanks. There were a couple of women, and even a child in one on the far end. I couldn't tell if they were alive or dead. There were no monitors or anything like that I could see that were monitoring life signs or vitals or anything. I was freaking out at this point. I felt like I was stuck in a nightmare or some stupid horror movie. I could feel the dread in the pit of my stomach, and I just kept praying and praying that I was going to wake up. Because what the fuck? How do you even react to something like that? It just had to be fake. It had to be some kind of weird prank or something. The people in there had to be dummies, and it had to be some weird Halloween thing, right? I had no idea what was going on with these people. There must have been a dozen of them or so. One of the tanks, it had a massive crack in the glass, and it was empty and had no water or any kind of liquid inside of it. I guess it must have been this guy that was inside. I turned to him and asked him what the hell this was all about, if my coworkers were playing a prank on me. He told me it was real. He said he didn't know what was going on. He said he was homeless for a while up in Gainesville. Said his parents passed away and he fell behind on payments. His job had massive layoffs and he could not even afford gas to get to work. He said he was squatting in an abandoned building with some people for a while. Said that was the last thing he remembered before feeling flowing water hitting his face and him being in the dark. That was all he could tell me. My mind was just vacant for so long, until I snapped back to reality and realized where I was and what I was actually doing. I didn't realize at first, but there were cameras down here too. I didn't notice them at first. I'd never seen these feeds on any of the monitors. Then a wave of panic just hit me all at once, just like that. I told the guy to wait right there, that I was going to go and get help, that something really wrong was happening, and I had to go and get backup security. I ran for the ladder and sprinted up, and the man tried to follow me. I shouldn't have done this. I'm not sure what possessed me, but I put the manhole cover back over, and I put something heavy over it, just so he couldn't follow me. I could hear the banging and the screaming coming from down there, banging on the manhole cover, and I just started running. I got to the security room and I picked up a radio, and I thought about reporting it, but what would I even tell people? I was panicked, and I did not even know what to do or what to think. You might think I'm an idiot, but I just went home. I didn't even clock out or tell people I was leaving. I left all of my shit there and just snuck out of the park and drove off. Nobody saw me, at least I don't think they did. That was a few days ago now. I have not clocked in for work. I haven't called anyone, not even the police. Deep down, I'm hoping it was just some kind of stupid prank and I got the wrong idea, but none of my bosses or coworkers have called me. It's weird because they're usually on my ass if I'm even 2 minutes late. They have no sense of people having lives. My boss calls me at all hours of the day, no matter what time it is. But now, just nothing. I've been sitting in my place by the windows, checking outside like a schizomaniac, and I just don't know what to do. What do I even do now, X? I know that if I say anything to the police or anyone else, they'll know it was me. They'll know exactly what I saw. There's no way those cameras didn't pick me up. Why the hell did I not just take the guy away and call the police like a normal person? Please, someone, give me some good advice. I am begging. This happened to me in the summer of 2003. At the time, I was just 9 years old. My parents had just bought a house in Italy. It was in a small, cute, and safe little town that was right near a lake. At nighttime, I used to sit on some rocks and look out at the lake. While looking out at the lake sometimes, I would see a white figure dancing above the water. It looks human, but I can't figure out much about it. I can't really see all that many details. I get spooked the first time and I run away. I go straight home and tell my parents, but they do not believe me. I go back again the next night and try and see if I can find the figure again. Nope. It's not there. Not at all. I keep doing the same routine again and again every night for around 3 weeks in total, and eventually I see it again. This time I can see the figure swimming. I get closer and try to speak with it. It looks at me and just stares whenever I say any words, and then eventually it just fades away right in front of my eyes. I continue doing the same thing as I did before for a few days. While looking at the lake one time, I feel something touching me. I turn around behind me and it's the white figure. It's around 2 meters tall. It's unisex and it's glowing. It has no eyes and no features. I am really spooked now, but somehow I feel that it won't hurt me. I just have this deep feeling in my body, in the back of my mind, telling me this. I sit back on the rock, and it sits right next to me. It does nothing but look at the lake, and then look at me. Eventually I start talking about things, while it just looks at me. It does not say a word or do anything at all, but it just sits there and listens to me. Eventually I leave as I start getting really tired. It just keeps looking at me while I am walking away. The next night, the very same thing happens. I just talk to it and it just looks at me. I do this for around 2 months in total. Eventually I have to leave the town. The last night in town, I tell it that I must leave and that I hope to see it again someday. It gets up and starts to dance on the water again. It keeps dancing until it fades away. I say goodbye to the thing, and I can feel sadness but also gratitude coming from it. Going back home, I meet with an old lady. She tells me that it was nice what I did, talking to it. I am surprised and I ask her about what she means. She told me that she also can see it and that she saw me every night talking to it. She believes that it is a benevolent spirit that is watching and mimicking people. It saw people dance and it started to dance. It saw people swim and it started to swim, etc. I return after a year, but I did not encounter it ever again. I am glad I was able to meet it, whatever it was. This happened to me a few years ago now. I went to an abandoned farmhouse at night, just to try and creep myself out, like a thrill seeker kind of thing. I went through the whole house and I found nothing. I went into the attic to check the floorboards. Everything is legit. I set up a tent and get ready to spend the night. I pass out around 2:30 a.m. I wake up at 3:30 because I hear the sounds of moaning. It actually sounded like someone was injured. So I open up my tent. It's pitch black outside. The second I open up my tent and peek out my head, the moaning stops. So I close the tent and I lay back down. I grip my flashlight tight. I pull out a knife and realize how shitty of an idea it was. I hear like people are downstairs having a dinner party, giggling and laughing. I unzip my tent and it all stops again. I get out of my tent and slowly walk to the attic window. It's this small, circular window. It's super dark outside. There are no cars or any lights. As I'm turned, the attic door, which is a small square door that's on the floor, it slams upwards and makes a loud sound that actually shakes the zippers on my tent. I literally drop a brick from my ass. The door is shut and nothing happens. As I slowly walk over, I hear underneath the steps this laughing, some kind of a giggling starting up again. I stop and feel a gust of wind. Under the 3rd floor, ground, 2nd, 3rd attic, I hear a full-on stomp running. Then I hear it go downstairs, then down to the ground, and then it randomly goes back to the 3rd, and then the door slams again. I see it bounce off the floor. I almost fainted. I begin to hear growls inside the attic with me. I run to the window and push the window open. Each floor has a small balcony. I pull myself out and begin to climb down. I pretty much fall balcony to balcony. As I get down on the grass, I can hear all of the doors inside of the house banging. I run down the driveway in the pitch black, wielding a knife. I left all of my shit there until the next day, when me and my 2 buddies went and grabbed it all. So, my last story happened a couple of years back when I lived with my family. We just bought this really nice house. It was a very old red brick, 2 floors, with a basement, but the basement was tiny. You could barely even stand up in it. It was some nice land. I bought it with the intention of severing the land and building a house to move into, and then sell this one. Well, that one, since moved. So I have a young family at the time. My baby daughter is born, and my wife and I decide to move into a house so that when she gets old enough, we can have another. Old house, wicked deal. We move in. 2 months go by. My wife starts acting really strange, a lot more mean than usual, really angry all the time. I'm going to work, I come home to fix shit, and then I go outside and figure out what I am going to do, and she constantly shits on me for no reason. I wake up on a Saturday morning around 4 a.m. I hear noises and I feel shuffling. I wipe the tiredness from my eyes, and when I open them up, I see my wife at the end of my bed, knelt over, staring at me. I freak out, I turn on the lights, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? She walks around, then lays down and goes back to sleep. Then she snores really loud, which she never usually does. The next day, by the way, this is like a month of her acting weird around the house. I hear her talking to herself, laughing at herself, and conspiring. I see her outside, full-blown talking to herself. I call my mom to pick up my baby. Hours later, my mom arrives. She grabs my kid and leaves, and I argue with my wife and take her out to get some air. We leave the house for some hours, and she begins to act normally again. She says she doesn't remember anything from the house, and everything seems normal. I tell her to stay at my mom's house for a night. She agrees. That night, I am in the house by myself, and I hear movement. I begin to hear giggling and laughing the exact same way I did in the old farmhouse. Instantly, I knew that something was up. I began to hear banging all over the house. I ended up explaining everything to my wife. I figured that something may have followed me, so I called a priest one day, one native and never a Wiccan, so that they could clean the house for myself and my wife. We ended up selling, just to be sure. I had two experiences that happened to me that I want to tell you about today. Both of which were explainable, but nonetheless, they were pretty weird. I was 10 years old at the time that this first one happened. I loved to hang out and game in the basement, since our family PC was located down there. The basement has this small horizontal window at the top that you can look outside of and see the side of the house, but at like foot/leg height, if that makes sense. One night, it's really late at night, I be doing some gaming. I start to get this feeling of being watched. I don't look outside my window at first, for the same reason I don't like to look at mirrors at night, just in case my reflection ever does something that I don't do, cack. I eventually cave and I look outside the window anyway. Something stares back at me, with a face that looks warped and burnt. I immediately look away and back at my computer. I just pretend I didn't notice the face. I shut down my game and my PC as casually as I can manage, trying not to look or feel panicked, even though I am. I feel watched the entire time I do so. As soon as the PC is shut down, I immediately bolt upstairs. I never game late at night ever again. I'm thinking it could have been someone playing a prank with a mask, but you'd think they would have made a sound or something to make me look, instead of just sitting there and staring. Who knows how long they were waiting there. And if it was a mask, it would have had to have been a very creative one. My brother had a pretty decent demon mask that looks like pick related, but it would have still looked like a mask to me. Anyway, so the second one. I was 13 or 14 years old at the time. My bed suddenly starts shaking at night, pretty much every single night. It wakes me up, and then it stops when I'm fully awake. I tell my parents. They think it might be sleep paralysis. But I had sleep paralysis before and it was nothing like this. It continues to keep on happening. I start to become afraid of falling asleep. I decide to just sleep through it one night. The shaking just gets more and more insistent until I am fully awake again. Another night, I decide to invoke the name of Jesus Christ. I cross myself and tell it to go away. I might have grabbed a Bible as well, I don't really remember. It was the worst shaking of my life, and then it just stops with a loud bang and wakes me up. I don't end up going back to sleep until like 2 hours later out of pure fear, but it never happened again after that. Since this event happened to me, I have never walked my dog at night since then. I stick to daytime ever since. So this happened to me around 7 years ago, when I was 17 years old. I am walking my dog at around 9 p.m. It's November time, so you can imagine just how dark it is outside. I am turning a dead-end corner. I see this black hooded figure step out of the pure pitch black, out of nowhere. I have no idea where he came from. My dog is shitting it in fear. My dog never, ever felt scared, so something is very wrong. Usually my dog would start barking or growling or be aggressive, but my dog is panicked, not ready for a fight. This black-robed figure, it fucking hovers towards me across the road. It has a black fencing-like mask on. I can't see any arms or feet, or any actual human features on this thing. I shout in its direction. I say, "Stay right there or I will break your fucking neck." It stops midway across the road. I cautiously pick up my dog, who is growling like mad with her tail standing straight up. I walk about 15 feet. I turn to check and it's gone. There was nowhere it could have gone, especially in that amount of time. It was a brick wall dead-end cul-de-sac. My dog is suddenly fine again. I noped all the way home and slept with a knife at my bedside. I will never know what the hell that was, but my dog never gets scared, so when she did, I knew that we were in danger. She bore her teeth at it. She never reacts like that to anyone. Any thoughts on what that was?